Hello from Lost Relation. The Chronicles' 8 years of my life were squandered and thrown away when I found out 7 months ago that my wife was having an affair with a middle-aged man. At the time, I was 31 and she was 33, and her drill partner, as I'll call him, was almost 50. It just happened that I was in the right place at the right time to learn about the affair. My business trip ended early, so instead of calling ahead, I thought it would be nice to just show up. As I was driving, I noticed my fuel gauge was low, so I pulled off at the next exit to get gas for reference. This exit was about 12 miles from my house. After filling up, I got back on the road, but the route to the highway was slow. Every intersection had a stop sign or a traffic light, and traffic was crawling as I sat at a four-way stop waiting for my turn. I happened to glance at a side street. That's when I saw it, my wife's car pulling out and heading in the same direction I was going. For a second, I thought maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me, but no, that was definitely her car. My stomach clenched. What the hell is she doing over here? We had just spoken a couple of hours earlier, and she hadn't mentioned anything about being in this area. Something felt off. I grabbed my phone and called her. It rang 4 times before she finally picked up when she did. Her voice sounded breathless, rushed, like she had just run a marathon. "Hey," she said, her tone strangely unsteady. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Oh, she hesitated for half a second. "I was just about to call you." I frowned. "Yeah, where are you?" I just had to run a quick errand," she said, still sounding a little off. Why, I swallowed the unease rising in my chest. "Our meeting's finished up early," I told her. "I'm on my way home." She sounded happy to hear that I was coming home, and immediately asked when I'd be getting there, giving me impression that she was already at the house. I told her I should be there within 15 minutes as we talked. I could tell from the background noise that she was driving. "Where are you headed?" I asked casually. There was a slight pause before she answered. "Oh, just going to the store." Something about the hesitation in her voice made my stomach tighten. "Which one?" "The one closest to our house." She said quickly that was a lie. If she was only heading to the local store, I could see her car a few hundred yards ahead of me merging onto the highway. At that point, I knew she was either cheating on me or involved in illegal activity. Otherwise, why would she lie? I thought about calling her out right away, but I decided to play along if she was going to lie because I wanted to see how deep the deception went. I said, "I'll meet you there, and then we can go out for dinner." There was a beat of silence before she answered. Her voice was a little too eager. "That sounds great." And I smirked. She hadn't expected that. Then, in the calmest voice I could muster, I added, "I just passed the rest area that was right behind her." For a split second, nothing happened. But then she slammed on the gas, her car tearing down the highway like a bat out of hell. I let out a breath, gripping the wheel tighter. Jesus! She knows I'm on to her. She was running, probably thinking, man. I almost got caught by the time I pulled into the store parking lot. She was already there, standing beside her car. She walked over as I parked, adjusting her clothes, checking her hair and makeup in a compact mirror. She was trying to look casual, but I could see the tension in her shoulders inside the store. She turned to me. "I need to use the restroom." I nodded, me too. Her face twitched slightly, but she covered it with a smile. I finished up within a few minutes and stepped outside to wait for her. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. Still. She hadn't come out when she finally emerged from the restroom. I smirked and said I was about ready to send in a search party to look for you. She laughed lightly, brushing off my comment. "Sorry, I had to do a number." 2. I nodded, pretending to accept her answer. But inside I knew she was lying the whole time she was in there. I could hear the sink running. She wasn't using the toilet. She was cleaning herself up, probably scrubbing away the stink and sweat from whatever she had been doing with that guy she was just with. We finished our shopping and decided to grab some prepared food from the store, instead of going out for dinner. I kept a calm exterior, but my mind was spinning, replaying every suspicious detail over and over. When we got home and sat down to eat, I casually asked, "So how was your day?" She didn't even hesitate, nothing remarkable. She said, taking a bite of her food, just went to work and came straight home, right? My grip tightened on my fork. Every new lie that came out of her mouth made my blood boil, but I forced myself to stay composed. If I confronted her without undeniable proof, she'd just gaslight. She was out cold, breathing evenly, as if she didn't care at all. It amazed me how easily she could do that. You'd think she'd be a nervous wreck worried about getting caught. But no, she was completely at ease, while I was left tossing and turning, trying to make sense of it all. The following evening, while she was making dinner, I decided to check her phone. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing, and I couldn't sleep. Nothing, no odd calls, no suspicious texts. I checked our credit card and cell phone bills online and found nothing unusual. For a short while, I felt relieved. Perhaps I had been mistaken or had allowed my imagination to run wild. But then the nagging feeling came back. The fact that I couldn't find anything didn't mean she wasn't cheating. It just meant she was skilled at hiding it. By that time, I was getting impatient and needed more evidence, so I decided to look into it further. In retrospect, I realized that I made the right decision, but at the time, it was excruciating to keep everything together and act as though nothing was wrong. A week or so passed, and everything was going as usual. I did my part, smiled when I had to, and pretended to be the devoted husband I had always been. But on the inside, I was a mess, waiting for something to happen again. Then one afternoon, while I was at work, she called me and said, "Hey, babe," in a light and casual voice. "I just wanted to let you know that I have to work a little later than usual tonight because it's our monthly close, and things are a little backed up." I leaned back in my chair and gripped my phone a little tighter. "Oh, how late do you think it will be? Maybe an hour or two. I'll text you when I'm going home." I forced myself to sound normal. "All right, sounds good. Don't work too hard." We said our goodbyes and I hung up, staring at my phone for a long time. Her tone didn't sit right, though, because I knew she had to work late sometimes. This was something else. It wasn't work. I remembered where I had seen her the week before on that street, and I had no business seeing her there. I knew it, so I left work a little early that afternoon and drove over there at around 4:30. I didn't see her car, so I pulled out and parked at the McDonald's near the main intersection, keeping a careful eye on the road. Sure enough, at about 4:45, her car was there, rolling up to the light and then making that familiar turn down that street. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, and after 10 minutes I drove down the street myself. And there she was, neatly parked in the driveway of one of the houses, right next to a brand new Ram pickup truck. My heart was racing as I gazed at the house, my hands clenched into fists. And for a moment, all I wanted was to get out of my car, march up to the front door and bang on it until someone answered so I could see the face of the man she was cheating on me with. However, something inside of me told me to stop, so I grabbed my phone, took a few photos of her car sitting in the driveway, and drove away. I drove home, my mind racing, knowing that my suspicions weren't just suspicions anymore. I had my proof. When I got home, I immediately looked up the address I had just seen her car parked at. I needed to know exactly who this guy was. A quick search pulled up the homeowner's name, and my stomach twisted when I saw the results. He wasn't some random nobody. He was the co-owner of a company that did business with her company. So she wasn't just sneaking around with some stranger. She was mixing it up with a customer, digging a little deeper. I found more according to various records. He was either 49 or 50 years old and had been living at that address since 2009. A little more searching, and I confirmed he was divorced, with 2 college-age kids, perfect a middle-aged businessman with nothing to lose, preying on a married woman who clearly had no problem stepping out on her husband. Later that evening, she came home, all smiles, carrying bags of takeout from my favorite Chinese place. My favorite place, like that was supposed to distract me. "Hey, babe," she said cheerfully, walking over to me. Her eyes were warm as if nothing was wrong, so she leaned in for a kiss, but I turned slightly and gave her a half-hearted air kiss that wasn't enough for her. She then grabbed my chin and pouted playfully, saying, None of that. Give me a real one." I almost froze, but I forced myself to comply, pressing a quick, cold kiss against her lips before pulling away. We sat down to eat, and I did my best to act normal, but every bite felt like poison, and my mind was constantly racing with what I should do next. "I have to go out to a customer location tomorrow," I said casually between bites. "I won't be home until the evening." She perked up at that, her eyes immediately narrowing with interest. "Oh yeah, where are you going?" "Couple of towns over," I said, keeping it vague. "What time are you leaving?" she asked. Trying to sound nonchalant early, I said, "Probably won't. Be back until later." I could see the gears turning in her head. She was gathering details, planning her next move. She thought she was slick, but I saw right through her. She smiled sweetly. "Well, don't stop to get anything on your way home. I'll have dinner waiting for you." The thought of that made my stomach churn. Dinner after she spent her day with him cooking for me like some devoted wife. It was sickening, but that dinner wasn't going to happen because I had other plans in store for her. Of course, I had no actual customer visits planned that day. The only visit I planned was to her drill partner's house. If I found her car parked there again, I was done. No more waiting. No more doubts. I would call her out right then and there, then move out, without telling her where I was going, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately things played out exactly as I expected. My stomach knotted when I drove over in the afternoon and saw that her car was parked in the same spot as the day before. However, this time there was no surprise, just confirmation, so I didn't think twice. I drove straight home, booked a hotel, and began packing my belongings. Every fold of fabric, every zipper, and the closing of my suitcase felt like closing the door on this marriage. I wasn't even depressed. I was just finished. When I had everything organized, I picked up my phone and called her, and to my surprise, she answered right away, her voice bright and cheerful as if she was delighted to hear from me. She chirped, "Hey baby, what's up?" I clenched my jaw and asked, "What are you doing?" She said, rather casually, as if she wasn't lying directly to me. "Yeah, you were spreading something, but it sure as hell wasn't numbers on a spreadsheet. You're lying," I said. "What?" "I know where you are, who you're with, and exactly what you're doing," I said, my voice calm but icy cold. "You're either screwing him right now or just finished screwing him just like you did yesterday, just like you did last week. Silence." She didn't even attempt to deny it. Not a single, "No, I promise." "But it's not like that. Nothing I'm done with you," I continued, "and I won't be home when you get there." I waited for a moment, then called her, used a few choice words I had been holding back for too long, and hung up. I sat back, exhaled, and waited for 20 minutes before my phone began to buzz with calls and texts, and I could tell she was in full panic mode. Exactly why it took her 20 minutes to start, because the second I hung up, she turned around wide-eyed and told her affair partner, "Oh my God, my husband knows about us. And for the past 20 minutes, she's been scrambling, thinking, panicking, spinning excuses, trying to figure out how to save herself. Now she's ready to talk during the next 24 hours. My phone never stopped buzzing. She must have left me 50 voicemails and sent over 100 text messages. I should have blocked her. But a part of me wanted to see just how desperate she'd get. At first, her messages were full of denial. It's not what it looks like. I can explain as if there was any explanation that could justify this, as if I hadn't seen her car parked in that driveway twice when I didn't respond. She shifted tactics. The denial faded, replaced by crying. "I'm so sorry, Frank. Please just talk to me." Then came the full-blown hysteria, hours and hours of texts and voicemails of her sobbing, begging for forgiveness. Isn't that how it always goes? They don't care when they're sneaking around. But the second they're caught, they turn into a damn disaster that night after checking into the hotel. I stopped by the bar to take the edge off. I hadn't eaten much, so the alcohol hit me fast. Numbing the rage just enough when I got back to my room, I did what I needed to do. I called our parents and laid it all out. I was feeling loose from the drink, so I didn't hold anything back. I told them everything, every disgusting detail. My mom gasped. "Frank. She has been defrauding a man in his 50s who is a client of her business." So I cut her off in mid-sentence. My dad, who is always the steady one, cleared his throat, and I laughed bitterly. "Are you sure, son?" "Dad, I saw her car at his house twice. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even deny it. What more could you possibly need?" My mom's voice broke. "I thought you were happy." I stared at the hotel ceiling, feeling nothing. "Yeah, so did I?" They were horrified, shocked, just like me. They had believed we had a perfect marriage. But that was just an illusion, wasn't it? Over the next few months, I stayed in hotels while working through the divorce. I avoided all contact with her. No calls, no messages. No one except my parents knew where I was. I didn't trust anyone else. Not to tell her everyone was on my side except for her closest friends, of course. But even my friends, my family, they all kept saying the same thing. "You should at least meet with her. Let her explain. Give her a chance to apologize to you in person." From the messages she'd been leaving me and the reports I was getting from mutual friends, I knew she wasn't handling things well. It wasn't surprising she had gone from sneaking around behind my back to full-blown panic the moment she realized I wasn't coming back. But instead of letting her deal with the consequences of her own actions, her friends decided to make it my problem. At first, it was just pressure, pleading texts, long-winded voicemails from people I barely knew. All saying the same thing. Just talk to her. "Frank, she's not doing well. At least let her explain." Then her older sister jumped in, and that's when things got nasty. One evening, my phone rang, and I answered without thinking. "Big mistake, Frank." "What in the world is wrong with you?" Her sister's voice was piercing and angry. "And you didn't seem to care. It's not my problem that she isn't eating or sleeping, God, Frank." I closed my eyes, already exhausted. Her sister sneered. "So you're just going to ignore her?" What if something happens to her? What if she hesitates and then spits out the words? "If she does something drastic, that's on you." That was the line. "She loved you, but she made a mistake, and you're just throwing everything away like it meant nothing." I clenched my jaw because it did mean something, and that's why I'm not tolerating this. I took a deep breath and made it clear that her decisions were not my fault. She had made this mess, not me. If you or anyone else tries to make me take her back, you can forget my number. The following day, I discovered that she and her friends had been telling everyone how cold and heartless I was. Then, in a real gut punch, her parents turned against me. Her dad and I used to go out for beers together, and her mom would tell me that I was like the son they never had. I had assumed that they loved me like family, but when it came down to it, blood was thicker than an 8-year marriage. Her mom called me, her voice tight with disappointment. "You're like a son to us, and now you're just giving up." I laughed bitterly. "Give up? She's the one who cheated, remember? She made a mistake. Frank, just talk to her." Fortunately, her own family and close friends supported me through it all and reminded me that I wasn't crazy and that I made the right decision no matter how much her side tried to guilt me out of it. Her mom insisted that people work through these issues all the time, but I'm not one of those people. That was the last conversation I had with them. Take me out. My wife fought the divorce hard, offering me anything I wanted to keep the marriage going, But I was done when she finally realized there was nothing she could do or say to change my mind. She gave in and signed the papers, and things moved quickly after that. Last month, the divorce was finalized, clean, and there were no lingering ties. I stayed out of touch and let my attorney handle everything. I won't act like I was a tough guy the entire time. 8 years is a long time to be with someone. There have been many sleepless nights when the stress of it all almost broke me, but I overcame it and am now free. However, she still believes that we will one day be reunited, and she keeps saying that fate will bring us back together the way it brought us together in the first place, but I can assure you that will never happen. She continues to text me 3 or 4 times a week to give me an update on her life, express her regret repeatedly, and tell me how much she misses me. I probably should have blocked her by now, but to be honest, I kind of like hearing about how miserable she is. Maybe that makes me petty, but after everything she did to me, I think I'm entitled to a little shot and Freud. As for her drill partner, well, let's just say that my attorney and his attorney are working on something, and I'll let you fill in the blanks. Now, she told me that he meant nothing to her, and she cut off all contact with him. However, she told me that he meant nothing to her, and that she had cut off all communication with him. 7 months later, her drill partner gave me $200,000 to drop the case, and I took the money because there was no point in dragging things out when I had already won in every way that mattered. I was now free of a cheating wife, and even better, I got paid for it. Some might call it hush money, but I call it compensation for my wasted years. I don't usually answer calls from unknown numbers, but a few weeks ago I received one and felt compelled to call Frank. It's Linda. I nearly hung up when her mother's voice sounded shaky and unsure, but I waited because I knew why she was calling. When they found her on the floor, she wasn't eating or sleeping, and the doctors said she had severe depression. They placed her in a rehab center. I didn't say anything, but I felt bad for her, so I ran back to save her from the mess she had made. Linda sniffed on the other end of Frank. I told her to stop talking to me because my voice was cold and firm. She was sick and needed help, so I cut her off. Then, in a small, defeated voice, she whispered, "I still love you." I laughed bitterly because she loved me so much, but she screwed another man in the middle of the day. If she truly loved me, she wouldn't have destroyed everything we had built. "Don't call me again," I said, knowing that as long as I stayed in this city, they would never stop pursuing me. I exchanged early sunrises and the tranquility of wide-open fields for the stress of corporate life. It's just me, the land, and the animals out here. I quit my job permanently. There are no more meetings, deadlines, or people I don't want to deal with. For the first time in a long time, I feel good physically and mentally as I wake up to the sun, work with my hands, and breathe in the fresh air. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.